Alright, in this video I'm going to go over calibrating the Fargo HDP printers. It'll be the same for the 5000 and the HDP2 and the 5600 as well, for that matter. If you're having an issue with on a card, if you have a white edge on mainly on the short side on the lead or the trail, then there's calibration you can do in here, and we're gonna go over that. It's called an alignment self-test. So start with your Fargo HDP printer, booted up, powered on, cards installed in your input hopper, and then ribbon and film, because it will print a card. It'll also require you to download from Fargo the workbench, Fargo workbench. If you Google Fargo workbench, you'll get a link to the HID Global website, and you can download that and install it. It's self-explanatory. It's a self-executing file, but once you plug in your printer with USB, it'll connect. You can have multiple devices that'll run to their DTC and their HDP printers, all for the most part, up till the newest model 6600 is not going to use Workbench, but pretty much every other model does. And it's a useful tool to have anyway, for printing card samples and things like that, but definitely for advanced settings. You can do some of this through the driver as well, but I prefer to work through Workbench. For me it's easier, but you can do the same thing on the in the device. I mean the printer driver. But anyway, so get Workbench, install that, turn your printer on, have cards loaded, film, ribbon in it, ready to go. There's several tabs here. The two that we're going to be using are the Test tab and the Advanced Settings tab. And it's important that you don't change any of these values in here, except for what we're going over. If you do that, make sure that you notate what you did and what the previous value was, so that it can go back, because a lot of these settings, if you change them, it's going to be required a Fargo technician to come in and fix it. So again, just warning, make sure you only change the values we're talking about here. So in this case, we're going to start with just going to the Tests tab here, and under Self-Test, there's two. There's Mechanical and Self. We're going to go to Self, and we're going to do this Alignment Self-Test. You can print this card from the printer as well, from the LCD, but since we're going to be using advanced settings, I'm going to go ahead and do it from here. So we're going to go to Self-Test, Alignment Self-Test, then we're going to hit Run Test. So if we go back over to the printer, it's going to be printing a card. And I might pause this video for a sec, because I'm not sure what the status of the plate and roller is on this printer. Okay, I'm going to pause this till it heats up a little bit, so that we're not sitting here for 3 minutes with staring at this LCD. Alright, so now it's transferring the card. And this isn't going to matter if you have a single-sided printer with just the printer, or what kind of flipper. If you have a wide flipper or the narrow flipper, it's not going to matter. So this process is going to be the same regardless. So You're going to take, it's going to print a card that looks like this, and what you're looking for, put it down here so that I can point things out. Alright, so what we're looking for is, okay, right here we want the line to basically be to disappear on the 0, and you should be able to see the 5 line. So, oops, knock that over. So if we look at this one closely, that's about what you're looking for on the top. And on the left, you're looking for the same thing. You want to be able to see that 5 line, but not really the 0. And then there's also these arrows, pointing with my thumb here, these arrows right here, basically you should be able to see the entire arrow, but you shouldn't be able to see any black or pink on the end. And we're gonna, so this card is actually, this printer is probably fine and it's printing cards without an issue, but if you start getting cards where you're, like I said, the leader trail edge on the short side, if you're getting white banding, or, white gaps there that are not printing, then this is what we're gonna do. So we're gonna go back into the Fargo Workbench. We're gonna click on Advanced Settings, and we're gonna scroll all the way to the bottom, and there's just 2 or 3 fields here we're gonna be dealing with, and they're gonna be different on every printer. Some may be similar, but what we're going to be interested in is transfer TOF right here, the transfer EOF. We'll be looking at this transfer image length, and then up here a little bit we'll be looking at the print top of form and print left of form. So we'll go over all that, but this is in the documentation. I don't know if it's in the, it should be in the user's guide. So what we're going to do is we're going to click Edit Settings, and again, do not change any settings that we're not going over here. And what I normally do is I change this value to a positive 25. And it's a good idea to notate what those values were previous, because you can see mine was minus 19, and it's saying that the, if you scroll up here, it's saying the default was minus 14, but I had it at minus 19. So that this default may or may not be the number that is in there now. I make the transfer EOF 0. Again, you're going to want to notate what those values were. I make the transfer image length 0. And then on the print top of form up here, I usually make that like 35, and then I'll leave the print left of form, I'll leave that at whatever it is, unless it's a crazy number. Generally this number will be between 0 and 6 or 7. So if it's 3, 4, 5, something like that, just leave it alone and we'll see how it what it looks like. So again, we're going to change the, I'll click on them here. So the transfer top of form, we'll change that to 25. We'll change the transfer end of form to 0. We'll change the transfer image length to 0, and then we'll change the print top of form to 35, and then we'll go ahead and hit Save Settings, and we'll go back over here to Tests, and it should still be on the same alignment self-test, and then we'll hit Run. Oh, hold on, we're getting an error. Plug it back. We just unplugged it and replugged in the USB. Not sure what was going on there. So we'll just go back and verify. Actually, when things like this happen, that's a good thing, because then it's something that might happen when you're doing this. So all I did was unplug the USB from the printer and then plugged it right back in. And now it's showing us ready to go in the devices and printers. So we'll go back into edit just to make sure that it saved those values. So 25, 0, 0, and 35. So it did do all that. So we'll go back into self-test and we'll run test. And I usually will keep these in sequence so that I can see the first card I printed, second card I printed, so on and so forth, so that. And you could even take like a Sharpie and write the values of what you did on the card so that you can refer to it later. While you're until you become more familiar with it, that might be a strategy to use. Okay, so. Alright, I don't think it made a change. So what we're going to do is we're going to, again, this is good training here. So we'll close the workbench. There's a couple different ways you can get, this is Windows 7, but you can either go to the start menu and open it, or you can go to printer preferences and click on diagnostics. Either way, as long as you have Workbench installed, either way that will open Workbench. So now we'll go back in here to printer information, working with self-tests and advanced settings. Sometimes it takes it a couple of minutes for this advanced settings to load. Well, I found that if you click edit and save, and then edit and save a couple of times, wait, and it might take you a minute or two, but I found that sometimes will bring it up. Sometimes this will be blank, it'll say loading, and it seems to take a longer period of time than you'd think it should. But anyway, so yeah, see, it didn't save it. So again, we're going to go in here and on transfer top of form, we're going to make that 25. Transfer end of form, we're going to make that 0. Transfer image length 0. And then on print top of form, we're going to make that 35. And then we're going to save, and you'll hear that beep. You should hear this in the video, but it'll make a beep sound when it saves. So now we go back to tests and we run the self-test. So again, it's like anything else. Something, might even be a good idea if you ran into that to unplug the printer, plug it back in, close the workbench, and reopen it once the printer boots back up. Just like any device, sometimes they need a reboot. In stock. Have to ship home. So anyway, we take the test card this time, and we'll notice that it has a green edge and a black and pink edge on the left. So the green that's next to the pink, what that signifies, again, we're going to go in here and we're going to edit, because we're going to, that's the print top of form. That's going to affect, got my card, that's going to affect the green that we see next to the pink there. And what the goal is there is to get that as much of that green gone while not taking any of the pink away. So we're going to go ahead and reduce this number. As you can see, there's a lot of green there, more than even the pink. So we're going to reduce that number a lot. And I think we were at 4, so I'm going to take it down to like 6. Again, that's on the print top of form. So we're going to take that to 6. And we're going to save that. And then we're going to go back to, and if you don't click this accidentally, I've done it myself, right here on this test tab. When you go back into advanced, there's this restore defaults there. That will take all of these numbers and it'll restore it to here, and your printer's not going to print. You're going to have to go through and adjust a lot of things. If you look in here at what the default is versus what it actually is, none of it matches. Nothing that counts matches. So again, very careful you do not click this restore defaults. Alright, so we're going to go to test, and then we're going to run that alignment self-test again. And this is going to, I've had some printers where I was fine-tuning it where it took me 5 or 6 cards. Others you can do it in 2 or 3. So it's going to take multiple cards to get the calibration where it needs to be. Okay, so we're going to take it again, and so now we can see that most of the green is gone. Let me go up here against a white background so that we can see closer. We want to make sure that none of the pink and none of the black is gone. And in some cases, let me put it down here where I can show you better, point to it. In some cases, you'll notice that that you might see a little bit of green up here at the top half of the card, whereas down here there will be no green. So that does happen sometimes, but you want to make sure you don't want to remove all of the green if it's starting to deteriorate this line right here. You can see this actually looks like some of the pink is deteriorating, so we're going to actually increase that number. So we're going to go back into advanced settings, edit, and then we're going to go down to the print top of form, and we're going to take that up a couple of points, say 8. And then we'll go back into self-test, self-test, the alignment test, and we'll run it again. And again, I normally will keep them I'll either stack them right to left, or I'll stack the last card on top or something like that so that I can see what the last, I keep track of what the last card looked like. So in this case, I knew the number was close to that. So if you took it to 35 and you had a big green, you might take it down to like 20, starting out at 20. And then take it down a point or two from there. All right, so I'm gonna look at it a little bit without the camera so that I can see better. Okay, so it looks like it might still be a little bit deteriorated. You can see, I think if you can see with the camera, you can see a little bit of green at the top there, and that's on some of these. The newer printers, you might not see that, but on some of these older printers, you definitely will see that occasionally. So again, what I should have done here was shown it how you would do it. We're going to go back into edit, and we took this to 35. There was a lot of green. We should probably taken this down to like 20, but I'm going to take this up to like 11 now. It's easier to sometimes track it removing the green than trying to add stuff back to it. So all right, so we're going to take that to 11, then we're going to go back to test again. Be careful, this restore default's up there. And then we're going to run that test again. And if this takes you 8 or 10 cards, that's fine, because if you don't get this right, your prints are going to not look right. You don't have to do this alignment unless you see some kind of problem with it. Mainly, you'll see things don't look centered and things like that on there. Not necessarily even a white gap, because there are adjustments that we can make just for the white gap, but unless your card's doing something, the print looks a certain way. You don't need to do it every time. Okay, so now it looks like it's a solid pink and black at the bottom, a little bit of green at the top, so that's probably about right. And we're going to look at that top of the card again. You can see the line on the 5, but not on the 0. That's about where you want it. So now that we've got okay, so now that we got the scroll down again, now that we got the print top of form right, we're going to start working on the transfer top of form. And what that's going to do is that's going to move the blue over to the edge of the card. And if you remember what the very first card looked like, we want the blue, no white space, no pink or black, but we want the blue all the way over there, but we still want to be able to see the 5. Hit it upside down. We want to be able to see the 5 line, but not the 0. So the same as on the top. So we're going to click Edit, and then we're going to go down to Transfer Top of Form, and we're going to change that to, we were at -16, but 25, we're going to go ahead and take that down to, let's say, -10. Negatives move it left, positives on the Transfer Top of Form move it to the right. Oh, and then I ought to talk about that too. If this hadn't been correct on top, that's the print left of form. I know that doesn't sound intuitive, but print left of form, the lower that number, it moves it. If you decrease this number, it'll move the image down. If you increase that number, it'll move the image up. So if it's not centered right, you'll see a pink edge either top or bottom. So if you need to move it, say there was a pink edge on the bottom of this card, we would increase this number on print left of form. If there was a pink image on the line on the top, then we would decrease that number to bring it down. So, so we're going to go back down. We're going to say -10 on the transfer top of form, and again, negative moves it left, positive moves it right. So we're going to save. Then we're going to go back over to tests, and we're going to run that test again. So we'll take the card out, and that looks about right. So if we look at it, you can see the 5, but the 0 is not there. The arrows are, we don't see any pink or black. If you look at the last card, we don't see any of that pink, but we still see the 5 line. Right here where my thumb is, on the 5 line we see that line, but not the 0 really. So that's probably about right. So once we get to that point, then we're going to go to the print preferences. So again, if you go into devices and printers in any of the operating systems, this is Windows 7, but devices and printers in any of the Windows OSs, right click on your printer installation and go to printer preferences. From the printer preferences here, you got this print test print. So we're going to click that. Depending on the ribbon you're using, it might say incorrect, it might say wrong film or something. Just hit OK and it'll print. Okay, so when we look at our test card, we can see that it looks good on the top, the left, and the bottom, but the right we have, it looks like the print is too small and there's a gap of unprinted white space on the right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to work on the transfer image length and the so we're going to go back in here to advanced settings in the workbench. We're going to click edit. Go all the way to the bottom. So now we've got the print top of form, we got the print left of form, and then we've got the transfer top of form. Now we're going to work on the transfer end of form. The transfer end of form extends this print area over, but there's enough gap there. You can see how wide this black band is on this side and how wide it is over here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to probably go over to the image length transfer, or the transfer image length, and for that much I'm going to start with 10. I usually start with 7, 5 to 7. but we're going to go with 10 on this one. Also on this one, I know for a fact that we're going to need to adjust the transfer EOF as well. So if it cuts off, I'm not going to do it yet so that you can see what it's going to look like. So we're going to go back into tests, and we're going to run that test again. But I would have adjusted that as well. But as you become more familiar with this, you can look at those at the same time. Oh, I'm sorry. We printed the wrong card. We're going to print another test card. So we're going to go back to the printer preferences. We're going to print a test card. I lost track with talking to where we were at. So we're going to print that test card again and look at the what we got with that transfer image length. Okay, so we can see that it increased the length, but there's still that white gap. We might need to adjust the image length again, but you can see that it's less than the other one. So that's where I was talking about. I knew we were going to need to adjust, so we're going to hit edit again. We're going to scroll to the bottom, and we're going to adjust this transfer end of form. I usually start with 20 or 25 there, but I know this one's going to need more, so I'm going to go to 40. But you can adjust it, start at about 20, 25, and then within a card or two you'll be able to. And I'm going to go ahead and, just because I know it, you play with one at a time until you get used to it, but I'm going to go ahead, just for time's sake, because we're already about 25 minutes into this, I think. I'm going to go ahead and increase the image strength. This one's kind of a lot. Most of them between 5 and 7 you're able to fix at 10 at most. Some printers, again, it's different for every one of them. So again, we're going to take that transfer EOF to 40, and then I moved the transfer image length, what that does is adjusts the width of your artwork onto the card. So then we're going to go ahead and we hit save. Now we're going to test that, print that test print again. At this point, we're just using the test print. Once we get the image length and all that, there's one other thing I'll show you on the test print card there as well to look for, that will take you into something else that might need to be adjusted. Okay, yeah, so now we can see that we have basically the same, there's no white space on any of the edges, and it's basically the same distance around, maybe a little bit more on the right, but should be fine. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for even coverage all the way around. One note on this I've found, if you're noticing that consistently on one edge, like on the bottom here, you see just a real fine white line. The way that some of these cards are produced, if you're not using a high quality card, the way they're punched out, it'll leave a little lip right on this edge here, and it doesn't allow it to lay down. So if you just flip your cards over to test that, if you're running into that problem, flip your cards over pick up the stack and flip it over and see if that fixes it. You can also pick it up and rotate it 180 degrees and see if it switches, if that white it's just a thin white edge, if it switches to the top from the bottom. But if you just flip them over 99% of the time, that'll change it. If you're using good quality cards, you shouldn't have to worry about it like on this. It'll look like that.